You got the touch. You got the power.
What's up everyone, I am the Kaiju no Kami, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Mill Creek's recent DVD release of Ultraman Dyna. Ultraman Tiga was such a huge success that Tsuburaya immediately decided to follow it up with another year-long series that would eventually become known as Ultraman Dyna. In fact, Ultraman Dyna would be a direct sequel to Tiga, set 7 years later in the year 2017, where Guts has now been upgraded to Super Guts. Super Guts. That means they have a lot to live up to after the outstanding team from Tiga. Does Dyna demonstrate the same triumphs as Tiga accomplished? Or is it just another sequel that is forgettable? Let's find out. The heroes. Our lead hero is named Shin Asuka. I kid you not. He shares the same name as the annoying, hot-headed, arrogant brat from Gundam Seed Destiny. Asuka is an annoying, hot-headed, arrogant brat. I guess it's in the name. Takeshi Tsuruno does a fine job with what he has to work with, which is pretty much the exact opposite to everything that made Daigo and Tiga so great. Comparing Asuka to Daigo is like comparing Maji Ranger's Kai to Gogo 5's Matoi. He is such an impetuous little imp that whenever he opened his mouth up, I wish I could have just walked into the TV to slap the shit out of him. Rarely does he feel like he ever grows up unless the plot of the episode requires him to be more mature for that moment in time. He hardly ever takes his job seriously, sometimes even reading manga he stole from a child while on monitor duty.
もう早とちりしちゃダメだぞ。僕たちも忙しいんだから。
それとさ、これ明日返すから貸しといてくんない？ね。いいかいいか。さあ仕事仕事。
Asuka does strive to be one of Super Guts' best pilots, for his dad was a pilot who disappeared during a flight test. Part of this is why he was chosen to be the latest warrior of light, and because deep inside he does have a good heart. Sounds like the start of every murder show. He had a good heart.
Until he didn't.
Asuka transforms into Dyna using a stick that makes me think of the Maji phones from Maji Ranger. The Life Flasher is much easier to carry around compared to Daigo's Spark Lens, and yet Asuka still manages to bash it along the walls when he transforms into tight spaces. Like with Tiga, Dyna has 3 different forms. His original form that balances speed and strength and is colored red and blue. Following that is Miracle Type, which focuses on speed. The form revolving around strength is known simply as Strong Type. Beyond copying Tiga's color-changing gimmick, Dyna doesn't have anything special to call his own, which is quite disappointing as he comes across as nothing more than a cheap knockoff. On the other hand, it does make sense given they are all supposed to be from the same race of giants. The remaining members of Super Guts include Ryo Yumamura, Toshiyuki Koda, Tsutomu Nakajima, Kohei Kariya, Mai Midorikawa, and Gosuke Hibiki. One of the biggest praises I had for Tiga was how amazingly diverse and developed the Guts cast was. Regretfully, I cannot say the same for those here. The Super Guts cast is as bland as many of the teams found during the Showa era were. Many of them might have a moment or two in an episode every now and then. However, the vast majority of them seem to have their personalities reset every episode. Especially Mai, who doesn't ever seem to grow one bit. Now, I do give her credit for being the one who ended up giving Dyna his name.
ダイナミックのダイナでウルトラマンダイナってどう？
ダイナ
ダイナ。
ダイナじゃなんだか
ウルトラマンスーパーデラックス。
もうダサい。ダイナがいいの。ダイナが可愛いの。ダイナがいい。ダイナ中層でしょ。ダイナじゃないとや。
Other than that, her name might as well just be Blank Slate. One episode, she is pining over a famous MLB baseball player who went to school with Asuka.
これ受け取ってください。あとこれも受け取ってください。あとこれも握手してください。ありがとうございます。これにサインください。
Then there will be another episode that has her admiring a race car driver who turns out to be the brother of Mayumi Shinjo's dead fiance from Tiga.
まさか兄貴が。
いいえ、きっとお兄さんよ。きっといつか誰かが説明してくれると思う。魂はプラズマだとかなんだとか。でも今はそんなことどうでもいいの。
She will also act like a complete ditz when the plot requires her to be one, which is insulting. What's worse is all of these never allow actress Maria Yamada to feel like she has ever grown throughout Dyna's entirety. I will give some credit to Super Guts though. They always take their job seriously.
どんな小さなこと、小さな情報でもだな、市民からの通報には全力で応えるのがスーパーガッツの使命じゃないか。
At least, most of the time.
スーパーガッツ出動。
ラジャー。
ラジャー。
バカ者！
私と稲野と褒めないでくれたまえ。何しろその筋では
よし、急いで水星爆弾を止めるんだ。
急いでって隊長、こっからじゃとても間に合いません。
火星艦隊の重要艦が阻止してくれるんじゃないですか。
こら無視するな。
Nakajima is a poor substitute for Horian being Super Guts' lead inventor and problem solver. What's worse is Joe Onodiro's sole character trait is playing the fat guy who eats a lot, as we saw in one moment when he scarfed down several buckets of KFC-like chicken.
何が専門だから任せてくださいや。うんだよ。ふざけんじゃないよ。腹が立ってこんなに食ってしまった。
キノコってのは葉緑体持ってないの。だから植物ではない。言ってみりゃ菌類ね。カビ。
カビなの？
そう。現在の生物学では動物とも植物とも分けて第三の生命体に分類されることが多いんですよ。
The similarities of the characters in Tiga don't end there, as Ryo is the team's super pilot, Kariya is their weapons expert, while Koda is the second in command. These three are portrayed by Riza Saito.
水仙に似てるけど地球にはない植物かな。何よ、サンプルの採取も重要な仕事でしょ。
Takao Kase,
花を摘んだりするのがこんなに似合わない女もいるもんだなと思って。
and Toshikazu Fukawa.
もし戦いの中で代を生かすために将を捨てることになったら。
代を生かすために将を捨てます。
One of the things I really dislike about Ryo is how the end of the show thrusts her into some love spell for Asuka, despite her never showing interest in him in that manner prior to the finale. We even get to meet the man she has been in love with since childhood a few episodes before the ending, which sullies the situation even further.
お手柄だったわね。
いや、みんなかっこよかったよ。
この調子で平尾に一生に一度のお願いがあるんだけど。
何でも言ってくれ。もう気持ちはスーパーガッツの一位さ。
Alternatively, I did like how we got to see Koda grow into the role of being vice commander, a scene that even included a flashback sequence of him and Munakata.
自分は宗像副隊長に長年憧れておりました。
それは光栄だね。
つまりどのようにしたら 宗像副隊長のようになれるのでしょうか。
As for Kaguya, we did get to meet his mentor figure early on, who is an archaeologist.
博士の見解ではこの一帯の地上絵は誰が何の目的で描いたものだと思いますか？
私は古代ゼネキンダール人が書いたもんだと思ってる。
ゼネキンダール人。
大昔地球を征服していたと言い伝えのある伝説の種族だ。
Finally, there is the team's commander, Hibiki.
私の指示を無視し勝手なことばっかりしてる。
それは困りましたな。
当然だよ。これは重大問題として上層部会議に。
いえ、私が言ってるのは彼らが従えないような指示を出すあなたが困ったと。
One of the aspects that made Aruma the best commander out of any Ultra series was how hands-on she was to approaching a situation. She was always going out onto the field herself and tackling a situation head-on while also acquiring character development in the process. She was a stern leader who wouldn't take crap from anyone no matter who they were. Hibiki ends up being the antithesis of Aruma. Very rarely do we see him on the field. He barely ever has any character development, and his personality is all over the place. One minute he is serene and serious, while another he is bombastic and silly.
マイ
隊長、ごめんね、ラブナス痛かったでしょ。隊長も謝ってください。
ごめんね、ごめんね。なんで俺がそんなものに謝らないといかんのだ。
To say I did not laugh at him at times would be a lie, as there were moments that were legitimately funny, such as the time he fired Asuka at the start of the episode, only for him to give Asuka new orders several minutes later.
バカモン！お前はいつになったら一人前になるんだ。
でも俺は
は
ついでだしアルバムの性能のチェックをしよう
も
か。
ういい！お前はクビだ！荷物をまとめて出てくれ！アスカ、どこにいる？出撃だ！
で俺クビじゃん。
バカモン！すぐに来い！
And then there was the time he pretended to be interested in the manga Asuka was reading while on duty.
バカ者！勤務中にこんなものを読んでいていいと思ってるのかお前は！
Regardless, the series tells us he is supposed to be this extreme hard-ass who is very disciplinary, only for it to show us the exact opposite of that.
なんだその格好は！脱げ脱げ脱げ！
隊長、それ
それってなんだそれって。スーパーガッツをたんたる者は普段から服装ぐらいビシッと。
あ、隊長。せっかく暑いんだから楽しまないと損ですよ。
わかりました。暑さの原因が。
We don't even learn he has a daughter until the second half, and we only see his daughter in that one episode. It's very disheartening when you consider how many times Aruma's family was discussed previously.
私は誰？
そのか。
Guts being upgraded to Super Guts also means they have received new equipment to take on monstrous menaces. You know what to expect in this department. Guns, cars, and planes. You know it'd be cool to see these groups wield in a series? Lightsabers. Make it happen, Tsuburaya. Give your team some lightsabers. They're on par with Tiga as far as usefulness goes. Still, I am quite certain the road vehicles are less effective this time around. I did chuckle out of the vehicle deemed the Connery 07.
コネリー07とはどんな複雑な地形でも敏捷な操縦が可能な特殊捜索救助艇である。
I wonder what they are supposed to be referencing. Adding to the notion that I found the cast in Tiga to be more engaging is the fact that every time one of them appeared on screen, I felt far more invested with them than I was with their super counterparts. There's not even really any higher ranking staff members that are notable in Dyna compared to Tiga. There is one last little bugger that befriends the team, a Muppet-esque alien creature that Asuka has named Hanajiro.
お前は今日から羽次郎だ。それと俺がウルトラマンダイナってことは内緒だぞ。
Tell me that's not terrifying!
Hanajiro is vastly intelligent to the point where he creates his own website that gets emails from all over the world. While I don't directly hate Hanajiro, he pretty much highlights everything wrong with Dyna compared to Tiga. The monsters and aliens. Except for a few creatures that have been carried over from Tiga, every monster and alien in this show is new to the Ultra franchise. And once again, most of them have never been reused since. Goza, Evo, and Ragaran make a return. The brainless brutes that I rather enjoyed in this installment include A Tale of Two Kongs, this crabby crustacean, and my personal favorite, Kokakacho. Something about the face inside the beak of the bird head just makes him look downright terrifying to me. I can't say there were any aliens that did anything remarkable compared to those who came before. I did like this trashy one.
Oh, I love trash. Anything dirty or dingy or dusty.
A ghost ship. Even though the fight against Dyna got really weird.
What the hell?
A wrestler who comes to Earth to challenge Dyna.
私は強い戦士との戦いを求め、星々をさすらう宇宙の格闘士だ。地球にはウルトラマンダイナという最強の戦士がいると聞いて、はるばる対戦を申し込みに来た。
A mushroom monster.
人類を破滅させる前に、まずお前を倒す。
Also, for some reason, I really want to hear Will Ferrell's voice out of this guy.
若者たちからそんな心のマイナスエネルギーを全て吸い取ってあげたんです。
なぜ
All I did was eliminate the most powerful man in the universe. Are there any questions? Go on. Yes. You in the back.
Now, there is a group of aliens that essentially become the main threat of the show, known as the Sphere. They appear in the premiere, an episode in the early 40s, and then in the 3-part finale. They don't have any character development whatsoever, and are pretty much there just to be a threat that ties into the beginning of the show. Personally, I think it would have been nice if the Kaiju from Tiga had returned as the main antagonist for Dyna, given they even appeared in the finale of Tiga. The effects and music. If you have watched Tiga, you know what to expect out of Dyna. There are a lot of great miniatures to be had on top of some really spectacular effects work. This Manda-like monster is just impressive on so many levels. The show can get a little too reliant on CGI, which does hinder it at times, and I think part of that is because Dyna is just inferior to Tiga on multiple fronts. While Dyna does have some stellar camera shots and that blur lighting technique Tiga featured, there were a few episodes that were impressive from a cinematic point of view, one naturally being directed by Akio Jisoji.
破り捨てて失踪したそうだが、どっかに潜んでいるかもし
オカ
れないな。
ルトやら古今の異端文学に精通し、異形のもの、つまり怪獣をこよなく愛した天才が。
It was a very weird episode, which is what you expect from his signature style. Kind of a shame the episode was more style than substance, though. Tatsumi Yano returned to helm the score of the show, which follows in the same footsteps he did with Tiga. There's even a few tracks reused from that show, and it all makes sense. Some of my favorite new pieces include the following. Alternatively, given the show's more comedic nature, there are a couple of compositions that come across silly to the point of ruining what could have been a really great moment. Tatsuya Mayade sings the opening song, simply titled Ultraman Dyna, which is average at best. It isn't anywhere near the quality of Take Me Higher. There are two closing songs, both of which are also inferior to Brave Tiga. The first is Kimidaki o Momoratai by Fumiaki Nakajima, and it's a dull and boring sonata. There are a few moments in the chorus aspects I did enjoy. Ultimately, it was forgettable. The second closing, Ultra High, is far more upbeat, which is quite ironic considering the artist who performed it is named Lazy. It's a good tune, at least by Ultraman song standards. It pales in comparison to the likes of Sentai and Kamen Rider. The episodes. Ultraman Dyna is just a mixed bag overall, as it had no idea what it wanted to be. For every seriously solid episode, we were treated to utter jokes. I've got quite a few contenders for being my least favorite episode, to the point where just choosing one is hard. There is a pair of episodes that feature a very flamboyant trio of aliens who makes the Three Stooges look competent. I have no idea who thought this triumvirate was a good idea, but it wasn't.
Dyna が笑ってる。
いや、あれは正気ガスだ。
So that just happened.
Nevertheless, the worst episode of the show is hands down the 8th episode, titled Bao An Far Away. This is all you need to know.
何？眠らせ怪獣。馬王の声を聞くとみんな一発で眠ってしまうんです。
でも私はバオンとの心を通じ合わせたいです。でも村での研究はとても迷惑、とても危険です。
Alright, I'm done. I can't deal with the clips from this episode anymore. It is that awful. My favorite episodes were a toss-up between the ones that featured Hibiki's daughter Sonoka, who hired a reporter to investigate the sudden personality changes of her friends, the ghost ship episode, which was ruined by that bull riding-esque scene I showed you previously. This was an ongoing issue for the series, as it seemed every time there was a really serious episode occurring, the fight with Dyna had to be turned into some circus act of sorts. Going on here? Why? Why would you do this to your show? Anyway, in the long run, I chose to go with the girls who called on darkness. This one revolves around a group of girls who have made a deal with a demon in order to exercise revenge on those they hate. Asuka and Ryo investigate the school these attacks have been traced to and find who's behind it. The best part of the tale is how horror-filled it was on top of its weirdness factor. The only negative I have towards it is there were no true consequences for the actions these girls invoked. Nevertheless, it was an incredible episode with a really threatening monster and atmosphere. The movie and special. As with Tiga, Dyna has a feature film and a follow-up special. The theatrical film is a team-up movie with Tiga, though you wouldn't know it given how Daigo doesn't show up at all, and Tiga just randomly appears to the final fight without any rhyme or reason for it.
人は光になれる。
Right. An alien menace comes to Earth and takes over the newly created AI-piloted battleship. Because that's what we need in the world. AI-driven battleships. Dyna teams up with Tiga to stop it, and the creature mutates into a tentacle monster thing. If you didn't know what tentacle porn was before, you will now. It's a pretty lackluster film that is borderline boring, and as with the series itself, does nothing astonishing. I should also mention that the film takes place somewhere after episode 26, but before 35. As for the special, this trash bin apparently takes place between episodes 48 and 49. I am hard pressed to say that is a fact given how Mai looks nothing like she did in the series. Not only is her hair longer than it was during the time period this movie is supposed to be set in, but she looks much older here than she did in the series, which makes me want to believe it takes place after the series. Of course, some of the events that occur in the finale contradict that aspect too. It's not really worth worrying about, however, as this special sucks. The Three Stooges return because having 2 episodes wasn't enough, along with what I believe is meant to be Android 01 from Ultra 7, who has come to Earth with a new robot.
お前を倒し、我らの力を見せつけた後、人類に降伏させる。
The usual crap happens, and Dyna wins in the end. That's all that matters. It's not as bad as the special that was on the Tiga set, despite not being worth your time if you aren't a diehard fan. Do yourself a favor. Just skip it. The DVD. The DVD is the same as it was with Tiga. You've got your slipcase, your DVD case with disc trays, and then a booklet which has information of Dyna and Super Guts, along with episode descriptions and then showing the monster and aliens that appeared in those episodes. It's your typical run-of-the-mill Creek stuff. The DVD quality is absolutely atrocious. I know I said the video quality of Tiga was not always great, but that was at least tolerable. Dyna sometimes really does look like a VHS tape that was ported onto the DVD due to how dreadful it looks. Compression is quite nightmarish right from the opening credits, with the lettering looking like it has its own personal flickering shadows around it. There were times when I cringed at how awful the video was.
何時ぐらいからですか？
今朝9時きっかりに始めました。
最初に地震が感知された時刻とほぼ一致してますね。
The audio was thankfully solid throughout. As for the subtitles, they're on par with Tiga's despite there being some inconsistencies. For example, in Tiga the subtitles called the monsters mutated by radiation clitters, whereas here they put an R in place of the L, making it critters. No, not those critters. The H at the end of Shinjo's name has been dropped, while other names are occasionally spelled differently depending on the episode. There are also a few lines where a word was either missing or misspelled, which can be vexing when you initially read it, especially on the first viewing.
それじゃあ奴がこのまま進行を続ければ
おそらく太陽系全てが消滅します。
The worst is that they didn't sub an entire conversation that occurred during the end credits of episode 33. That was rather annoying.
もう怒鳴りまくってるわ。恐るべき生命力。
そっか。なら俺もまた仕事に張り合いが出るよ。
Even the video quality for the movie and special are equally horrifying. I'm not sure if Tsuburaya just gave Mill Creek the worst masters imaginable for the movies, but it wouldn't surprise me with how bad they look. For years I've seen people tell me that Dyna is so much better than Tiga, and I just don't see it. I didn't even think the show was even half as good as Tiga. Though, I didn't exactly hate it. It's just an average middle-of-the-road Ultra series, thus deserving of its 3 out of 5 grown-ups in spandex. It's a shame too because my expectations were very high for Dyna, maybe a little too high. I should keep those in check. Asuka was just a horrible main character and vastly inferior to Daigo. He was like that little brother that keeps saying, "Can I play video games with you and your friends? Can I play video games with you and your friends?" And then you go, "Okay," so you hand him a controller that's not even plugged in to make him think he's playing. That's what Dyna was to me. The little brother that is just there because he wants a participation trophy. The DVD quality sucks too, so I don't know what to tell you on this one. Unless you're a diehard Ultra fan, you can probably skip it. Until next time, bye.
「世界を守る TPC が環境破壊してちゃシャレになんねえだろ」
アスカ隊員知ってます？日本のゴミの年間排出量は6000万トン以上。それも年々増加してるんだもん。放っておけばすぐ処理能力超えちゃって街中ゴミだらけになっちゃうんですよ。